My guest today is none other than Rick DellaRatta, a world-renowned jazz musician, composer, and humanitarian. But beyond his musical genius, Rick has carried a mission that transcends jazz itself. On the morning of September the 11th, 2001, as the second plane struck the Twin Towers, Rick was moved by the enormity of the moment and wrote a poem that would later evolve into Jazz for Peace, a movement that has since grown into a global initiative using the power of music to unify people and inspire peace worldwide. As someone deeply intrigued by cosmic alignments, I took a unique approach to this conversation by analyzing the astrological chart of that fateful event and comparing it with Rick's own natal chart, unraveling synchronicities between the moment he wrote Jazz for Peace and the universal forces at play. And in today's conversation, we are going to explore the role of music and artistry in shaping humanity, the mission behind Jazz for Peace and its global impact, and the spiritual and astrological correlations of that pivotal moment. And of course, will be graced with a live, intimate performance by Rick himself. So without further ado, let's welcome the extraordinary Rick DellaRatta to the Transcenders podcast. I've looked at the events of 9/11. You sent me that poem, right?
Yes.
I looked at the events of 9/11 as an events chart, and then I looked at your chart, and there's a lot of things I'd love to talk to you about or just put on your radar that you may want to consider. They're just
Yeah.
suggestions, really, but things that I've
Sure.
seen, because what I'm looking at is more of a spiritual approach to your soul's journey across lifetimes. It focuses on the idea of personal growth and karmic evolution, the past life influences and intentions, but lessons for this lifetime. The time you wrote that poem, the time those events happened, it was a time of you starting to bring coherence out of chaos.
That was a time for me to be starting to do that anyway. 9/11
Yeah,
just happened to happen, happened to come.
it was meant to happen. And
Okay.
I'll go through if you're all right with me going through some of this, because I think it's important for you to know, and it's not something I can just type out and send you.
Having dinner last night. See, this is crazy because people are waking up. I was just talking about the person who is interested in having me do this podcast with you. She's talking about how people are somehow waking up now to different things.
Yeah.
There's an awakening going on. And last night I'm having dinner with someone and he says the numbers 9/11 keep coming up on his thing. And I said, do you have any idea that you're sitting with someone we didn't really know? He knew that I was a musician. And so I Googled Rick DellaRatta 9/11. I said, look at this. He's like, that's so bizarre because he's been having 9/11 coming up all the time. So that's why I think listeners would love to hear what you're telling me you're going to say.
You're a man whose soul carries the weight of a grand mission. You are now standing at the crossroads of fire and harmony, and you could be torn between the fierce independence of your spirit and the deep longing to unite the world. Like your music, it's an intricate dance, a push and pull between bold self-expression and the responsibility of creating harmony amongst others. I'm seeing in your chart from an early age, you felt that fire inside of you. You felt that restless urgency that could not be contained. That was born with a warrior's heart, impulsive, passionate, unafraid to carve your own path. In your beating heart, in your chest, was the pulse of a diplomat, a lover of beauty, a seeker of justice. Your music became the bridge between these two forces, a way to reconcile your raw intensity with your deep desire for connection. Your art is not just art, it is an offering to the world of a sacred act of balance and restoration.
Wow.
Maybe in ways you may not be able to articulate, but what I'm seeing is your gift is meant to heal, to soothe, to inspire. You've walked through the fire, you've learned the price of passion. Now you carry the wisdom of one who has been burned, but you refuse to turn to ash because your melodies don't merely entertain, they awaken something ancient in those who listen. You're both a leader and a servant, a warrior and a peacemaker. You've been subpoenaed to step into the light, to stand firmly in your own brilliance without fear. And the weight of this type of leadership, or what I call transcendent leadership, can be heavy, but it's also your destiny. So the world is watching you, not only for your talent, but for the message that you carry, one of unity, of healing, of transformation through beauty. And like all people, we carry wounds. What I'm seeing is there may have been a quiet sorrow buried deep in your soul, a feeling of longing or searching for something just beyond the horizon. But it's the wound of faith, of trust. But within that wound lies your greatest gift, your ability to turn pain into power, suffering into song. Your journey is not about conquering this ache, it's learning to trust it, to surrender to it. You're not just a musician, you're a messenger, you're a healer, you're a bridge between the seen and the unseen. One thing is really certain to me in your chart is that when you play, when you speak, when you pour your soul into your craft, the world is made just a little bit more whole. So never doubt the importance of voice because you've been placed here with these gifts for a reason. Your greatest task is not only to make music, but to make meaning, to remind us, to remind humanity that through every note you play, that peace is not an abstract dream, but it's a song we all carry inside of us, just waiting to be heard.
I couldn't have possibly said it better than that. It's amazing. See, you are so needed because I could never say that, first of all, and I could never convince anybody of what you're saying that you discovered on your own through this chart work that you do and all of the work you do. And it's like only a third party could convey what you just did. But every single word that you said totally resonated with me. I totally understood it and it totally made sense. But it's so rare that so much sense is being made. And the fact that you're able to do it is just phenomenal. But like I said, I could never say that. And if I did, people would be thinking, he's just grandiose. He's a grandiose nutcase, or who knows what he would say. But it's amazing what you said because, yes, I would have to dumb myself down to fit into the boxes of, let's say, music, of entertainment, of piano execution. Those are little boxes. And what you're bringing out is what I'm really meant to do is completely beyond that. And that is what I've been trying to tell the world is the power of the arts and culture. You see all these people recognize names, go on TV, they seem so smart, and yet they have no idea of the potential of the arts and culture to move these mountains. They just stand there in front of the boulder, talk, and then they try to move the boulder. It's not going to move. It's not going to go anywhere because they are completely unaware that the arts and culture is 1,000 times more power when it's unleashed. In other words, when it's a salmon that swims upstream, not the salmon that is controlled by mankind and lives in polluted farm waters of places like even Norway, but places like, what is it, Vietnam. A lot of them are the Vietnam thing. But the thing is, it's not just Vietnam because looking over the fjords are these beautiful factory farm salmon things where, again, of course, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the completely free and unadulterated and unharnessed power of the arts and culture, not the arts and culture that maybe the elites are packaging.
Absolutely. When I look at the event chart on that day, has Libra ascendant. Now, what does
Okay.
that mean? That means that an event or a person in the world represents the sign of harmony, balance, and justice. And these are qualities that align perfectly with where the sun was at that time. So the suggestion here is that Jazz for Peace was destined to be an initiative centered on peace and collaboration. The poem you sent me indicates a strong emphasis on communication, adaptability, and bridging divides. It reinforces the serious and structured intent behind bringing people together through dialogue and music. You wrote this poem while witnessing this act of tremendous violence, but the words speak of celebration and light. Can you take us back to that moment and describe how you managed to channel hope in the midst of such darkness?
What happened was I was on a rooftop, and as I have previously said on many podcasts, I had been tipped off by someone who had taken pictures of me on the 10th. And if you look at the Jazz for Peace CD, you'll see a picture that was only hours before everything changed. My whole life changed and my whole life trajectory, which you correctly said I was on anyway, because I was on a journey anyway. But this horrific event that I was witnessing with my own eyes confirmed to me that this potential of the arts and culture to transcend and take people out of the mesmerized, hypnotized boxes that they've been placed under by ruling classes and by giant corporations who are profiteering at everyone every which way, who has raped and pillaged this entire earth because of their addiction to profiteering. They got addicted to it. They literally need to be rehabilitation. It's an addiction fractal. When you look at the drinker, but then all of a sudden he passes a Rubicon and now he knows he's addicted, but he can't stop. This can happen with anything, and it can happen with corporateerism. Even the corporate document is a fake document. It was meant to protect things like Central Park, and it was brought into the private sector to protect people from litigation, human beings from being litigated against. But anyway, to get close to you, I'm watching the event to stay on topic. I'm watching this event and I'm realizing that there's words swimming inside of me. Words are swimming. And if I don't purge the words out onto a piece of paper, I'll be stuck with words swimming. I won't be able to do anything. So a few words come out and I've got to write some words down. Otherwise, I can't think. I won't be able to let other thoughts. I won't be able to even keep watching what I'm looking at. So the words come out, boom, they're over there now. Thank God they're not swimming inside of me. More words come out. Thank God they're over there. They're on this piece of paper. And now I can talk to somebody. I can look at what people are saying, what's going on with the news, what's going on my street. People are walking up, silver people are walking up the street like zombies, zombified silver, all silver. Part of me is saying, is it Halloween? Wait a minute, we're in September. And it's taking me like 5 or 10 minutes to realize these are people that have walked north from the World Trade site, not knowing what to do, just walking north. New Year's Eve, which is a big thing in New York City, especially the communities involved in the arts. They love to dress up. You look like something like that. It looked like a parade, literally like a wild parade. So things like that are going on. So at least I can acknowledge, because if I don't put those words down, I can't even look at these people and say, what is going on? How did they become so silver? Because they're covered with all that soot.
Did you feel a sense of being guided or protected as you wrote those words?
As I wrote the words, I felt like there is no way that a whole bunch of things are not converging, a whole bunch of things more powerful than me. It was really impossible for me because it was really an affirmation, what I was looking at, because we have been taught to think all of these things, and there's been a veil, some kind of something covering it, so that we kept thinking all of these thoughts. When deep down inside, when we were left to our own thoughts, we were like, wait a minute, look at what music does. I just played in a house with Israeli Palestinian people playing music, and there was no war going on in the house. The people looked like brothers. You would never even know that. So there's all of these contradictions that we're thinking in our thoughts, but we're covered with this veil. But when that happened, I was like, wait a minute, that is an uncovering of the veil. And now it's an affirmation of all of my thoughts that, wait a minute, all of these things that I'm thinking are the thoughts that might be true, not what they're telling me. Then, of course, when I saw all of this stuff, I was realizing, okay, this is behavior of which you are blocking the power. You are blocking important spiritual powers in order to have this happen. This could be resolved through these healing powers that we innately have inside us, that we know about, that are just constantly suppressed by people who want to control.
Diplomacy, beauty, healing, and connection. You can create harmony and build bridges between people and ideas with depth, transformation, and resilience. This indicates the intense and passionate drive to affect change. There's a placement that suggests that moments of crisis can activate your ability to take profound transformative action. It suggests to me that you're driven to create harmony from chaos or coherence out of chaos. Has this always been part of your consciousness, or did the events of 9/11 crystallize this mission for you?
I think there's something inside me that gets very calm when the heat drives people into pandemonium or out of their skin. When that goes this direction, there's a part of me that goes into deep calmness. In other words, if you push more, I go deeper. If you push more, I go deeper
Mm.
into where I'm literally like a Maharashi if you keep pushing it. If you blow up everything, I'm turned into some kind of a spiritual Zen. I don't know, probably Buddha. I don't know what I'll turn into because it hasn't happened, but I go one direction while that's going the other direction. So there is that side of me that does that. I don't know if that's been placed upon me from all of the stresses of being an artist or what, because you're in jam sessions and you have to play and you don't even know if you know the song and you don't know the other musicians and you don't know what they're going to do. You have to be able to go into states of calmness. But one thing I could say is that all the things you just described are in my soup. So all of these things, negotiation and transformation and uniting people in positive ways and finding common ground, those are in my soup. If you take stuff out of a soup, if you pull out the carrot, you change the taste of it. What I noticed going on in the world is they're showing you a bowl of soup that they remove this and they remove that. So by removing this, that, and the other, this is your reality. For example, you have these mice that they talk about. We put the mouse in, and all they did was take the cocaine and they died. And so it's a well-known study. Here's the problem. They put the mice in a 4x4 prison cell with nothing else. No other options, no other choices. Then they said, yeah, we'll gladly kill ourselves if you're going to keep us in 4 cell walls like this. Just like people kill themselves. You'll find a father of a family going through the court system. He's going to kill himself because the courts have whacked up his whole family, divided up his assets, destroyed his whatever. So they took the same mice and put them in their natural habitat. And they didn't touch the cocaine at all. They didn't even go near it. They had all these options, all the things they need in life. So in other words, they took everything out of the soup, and now you wonder why you get that result. But it's when you see the Republicans and Democrats arguing, which governments love, right? They'll never have a third party because the third party is harder to control, and it might give the people a chance. They'd rather have these two parties divided. But one guy took the carrot out and this party took a celery out and they said, this is the soup. And the other one's got a carrot in a celery, but they took the chicken out and they said, this is the soup or whatever it is. In other words, they're not looking at the same soup. They're looking at what they removed. And they're saying, that's this and this is that.
Your poem has thickened the soup. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but something of past contributions of those that came before. So that suggests to me a strong connection to tradition and legacy. And there are placements in your chart that represent wisdom and expansion and discipline and responsibility. So this is deeply rooted in history and structure. Are there any jazz pioneers that particularly inspired your vision?
Right now, a new documentary is coming out. I don't know much about it, but I sent you a link, I believe. Democracy Now! Talked about it. That's the only person I've seen talk about it. It's interesting because it looks like it's validating exactly what you said. That is where I'm saying those people came before me. All of those people came before me. Some say maybe in good ways, maybe in bad ways. In other words, sometimes they'll take something good and put it out front, but the agenda might be bad behind it. You know what I mean? We'll see in this documentary, but apparently they murdered a person who wasn't going along with a relatively evil plan against his own people, ended up getting murdered in one of these countries in Africa. Because what happens sometimes is they'll try to take over a country and turn the leader against his own people and give him a bunch of money and say, you'll be fine. We're just going to go and destroy your country. No biggie. Look, all this money we'll give you, or something like that. And if they don't go along with it, something happens. So all these people that participated, including the person who gave me my first break in music, Dizzy Gillespie, as his opening acts, he was one of these jazz ambassadors, United States jazz ambassadors. And he's one of the people that came before me. I wrote lyrics to a song called Cheeks, where I emphasize, I brought in that kind of thing about how important it was to him to do some of the things he did, which was also bring the art form of jazz to Cuba and merge it with Cuban rhythms, creating Latin jazz. So again, these are uniting the musics of different cultures. And as a jazz ambassador, he was hoping to bring good. And Louis Armstrong was part of that. And a bunch of these guys were part of it. When I say those that came before, I'm also talking about people like Gandhi. I'm talking about people like John Coltrane, who was spiritual, extraordinary, transcendent. I'm talking about Martin Luther King. I'm talking about Malcolm X, who they kept portraying as this violent man. And I read his quotes because when my quote became famous, unbeknownst to me, I ended up finding it on the quotes pages. I'm reading the quotes of other people, from Aldous Huxley to this one and that one. And I'm like, these are amazing things that these people said. We should be aspiring to live up to these amazing quotes, these amazing things, as I aspire to live up to the words of a poem that I wrote.
There's an organizational destiny because the chart showed Venus in Leo, which forms a harmonious trine with the Libra ascendant. What does that mean? That means that Venus, which is the planet of love and art and values, in Leo, which is a sign of creative leadership and self-expression, the suggestion is that artistic excellence is a core part of your mission. And this configuration supports an organization that uses artistry, which is Leo, to promote peace, and balance, which is Libra. So Jazz for Peace has evolved into a global initiative. And when you first wrote this poem, did you have any sense of the scale of what was about to unfold?
I would say absolutely not, as far as what Jazz for Peace. I did know that this is going to have something to do with my life just because so many things had converged. And I have these words. First of all, just the fact that I witnessed it, I didn't think it was that big a deal, and nowhere as much now, because so many people are like, oh my God, we've never run anybody who watched it from a quarter mile away, because a lot of people are on the ground. You're not going to see the same. I was on a rooftop. I didn't realize the staggering view that I had of this event, and how few people were available on a rooftop that close by to see it. Nevertheless, I knew the fact that I had such a front row seat to watch it, the fact that words purged out of me onto a piece of paper. And the fact that when I looked at the words at the end of the day, which is all I had to show for 9/11 was a bunch of words on a paper, I was like, okay, this poem, the title of this would be Jazz for Peace, based on the words that came out. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know what. It's almost like saying they're packaging mortgages and mortgage-backed securities and selling them to Iceland. I didn't know the whole financial market was going to crash in 2008. Like, I didn't know that Jazz for Peace was going to soar to levels where people, billionaires, literally, it seems like they would like to be perceived as someone with my achievements that are unrecognized. But they would like to be perceived as having my achievements. Even though my achievements are unrecognized, they would like to be perceived like that. When they have billions of dollars, like, you've got all these billions of dollars, why do you need anything? Why do you need little old me? In other words, those achievements, if you put them on a piece of paper, which I've done, and which I would like your readers to, don't listen to me, go to jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about and look at what Jazz for Peace is, and then go to a giant foundation that you think has been trying to save the world all these years, and try to find a page like that. Just try to find it. Because like I said, I would talk to people and they would say, so-and-so is going to take care of that. I don't know if I should name names, but they would say their favorite quote unquote philanthropist. So, and I'd say, really? And I'd let them talk and talk. And I'd say, where can I see what they've done? It's over here. And at the end of the day, they'd show me a giant website. I'd say, no, where on that website? when they had to actually show me what they have been mesmerized to say from watching CNBC or whatever they were watching, it created all of these words that come out of them. They would say, we really should be talking about skiing. Like the whole thing just comes to a stop. Just show me the page. But they still want to be in that hypnosis because it's a safe place and the world thinks that way or something like that. But to me, if I did that with nothing, what in God's name would this world look like if peace was funded at 1%? A guy named Guru Dave said, you mean 100%? Then say 100%. So yes, but if all I'd ask is go to that page, scroll, keep scrolling, look, and imagine that was done with zero. Imagine what our world would even look like, unrecognizable at 1%. And no, I think it should be 100, but I'm just telling you, we won't even recognize this world if you funded that at 1% instead of zero.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's a fact.
It's interesting because on that particular day, the event of that day, when I look at the chart of that day, Uranus and Neptune were in Aquarius. What do I mean by that? Uranus is the planet of innovation and breakthroughs. Neptune is the planet of inspiration and dreams. But they were both in Aquarius, and that's the sign of humanitarian causes and progressive ideas. So what this suggests to me is that Jazz for Peace is inherently a forward-thinking and transformative movement. My question is, how has Jazz for Peace innovated in its approach to peace building?
Here's the thing, the arts, there's a 25-year lag between the artist and what he actually did. So right now, as we get closer to 25 years from 9/11, the closer we get, the more people are waking up to me 25 years ago. I have people on a ski bus over here, like they would never talk about anything. They were all of a sudden now they have woken up to a certain point and they want to look for stuff on me, and it comes up in the 1990s, my albums, my CDs. Wait a minute, you are, who are you now? What's going on? I thought you were just the guys that sat next to me on the bus. They want to catch up to 1990 something because basically it's 25 years, 1999 maybe, or maybe 2000. We're still not at 9/11, right? But if you see how close we are, as we're getting closer, people are waking up to that. Where is Jazz for Peace? That's what you're asking, which is extremely important. Jazz for Peace is at a point now where we can actually show you solutions to problems. When you look at them, you're like, oh my God, that's 9 million times better than anyone else is offering. I don't want to get credit for it. I'm just like saying, put our solutions in the soup of solutions. Don't leave that out of the soup, because that's very similar to putting the mouse in the place without all of the things that he is accustomed to. Everything in the soup before we look at the possibilities of what it could taste like. So I can tell you, when people do get a whiff of it, the vote is off the charts. Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It was voted on because LinkedIn had this thing where you can vote. Maybe they took it away after my vote. Maybe they got somebody who's controlling them. I don't know. But we put a vote up because I was getting over 1 million views a week, because LinkedIn had unscrewed that because I had a book coming out. And the book was pointing out undeniable things and screenshots. And everybody should know this. You can take an algorithm, twist it, and now you can make this viewpoint be seen by zillions of people and this viewpoint only be seen by no. Even Facebook, people used to say, I put a post on Facebook, only 7 of my own friends would see it. Not all of them, and no strangers would see it. So you can do all kinds of stuff with algorithms. When people had a chance to look actually unbridled, I was getting over 1 million a week, 1 million. So then I put up a vote. LinkedIn allows a vote, and I'm getting over 1 million a week. They're going to give me 2 weeks to have a vote. And we made sure people saw that. The vote was 96% on the Jazz for Peace solution. Now you've got 96% of Israelis, 96% of Palestinians on the same side. And then you probably have an even higher percentage of the rest of the world, all on the same side, right? So we had 3 choices. One was the Jazz for Peace solution that had frequently asked questions, 23 pages now of frequently asked questions asked by Israelis and asked by Palestinians and answered on the page. Answered to their satisfaction, because I couldn't believe it when I would say to an Israeli person or a Palestinian person, what's your next question? And they'd be silent. And I'd say, wait a minute. Are you telling me that was answered satisfactory, this question you had? Because these people say they can't answer anything. They said, I am satisfied with the answer. I'm thinking there's gonna be a sub question. And I answered it, and they're saying no. And I put under there. So now you've got a situation like that. The second option was to leave it as it is, keep doing it. The third one was escalate the bombing. That didn't even get a vote. Nobody wanted to vote that. So it was 0. And what happened? Escalation. Do you know what I mean? But that's just one of so many things that I can tell you. In 2022, I was at a concert in Nigeria, and I was trying to tell people, listen, you cannot just jail this guy, Assange, for being a journalist. They had some wacky rape charge, made no sense at all either. In some other country, they're trying to get stuff, smear people. You cannot just do that to a journalist. If you do, and this doesn't get straightened out, there will be so many civilian deaths. Why? I'll tell you why, because there'll be nobody to report on it. If you've got no one to report on it, they're going to go nuts. People will do things if no one's going to tell. No one's going to tell on them. There's a video of me telling that, but then you see it happened. You know what I mean? So my point is, where I'm at now, unfortunately, is I can tell you stuff, but if you don't listen, you're going to hear exactly what I told you happened. And I'm not even psychic, but it's what I've learned by helping 850 of the world's most outstanding dedicated causes. I've learned all of these things from each one of them in their area of expertise. Somebody helping orangutans out in Indonesia because of all of the deforesting. I learned from those people, all these different organizations in all these continents and everywhere. So now Jazz for Peace is in a position where if you want to, let's say technology, AI, right? It's going to take all these jobs. If you want to take that and spin it in a way that creates immense productivity for human beings to follow their dreams and heal all of our world's problems, I can show you exactly how to do that based on everything I've learned. If you want to get rid of, let's say, the trickle-down economy that we have, people don't want to get rid of trickle-down because some of them at the top are getting trickled. They're getting the money first. I'm not going to ruin it for you. I'm just going to stop the destruction of everybody else, of all the people getting victimized for. How are you going to do that? What are you trying to be, David Copperfield on me? What are you, nuts? I'll tell you. We have a philanthropic cryptocurrency. With the blockchain, you can do it in such a way that the funds only get released through certain tasks to keep it philanthropic. Why can't we do it with the dollar? I'll tell you why, because all these regular currencies are corrupted. These currencies have done good things, but these currencies have been used for slaughter, for genocide, for war. They're not the currency alone. It's not a pure currency. It's not what Aristotle said money was supposed to be. But with a philanthropic cryptocurrency, only used for philanthropic purposes, right? Only philanthropic purposes. Now, guess who gets the money first? The people who are passionate about doing something good in the world because it makes them feel whole. See, this is the problem. There are people that are wealthy that are empty because for whatever reason, their inner passion wasn't satisfied in their quest for all this wealth until they get the memo that they have to figure out what is inside them, whether it's spading cats, I don't know, some crazy thing that they have, but it's in them. They need to find it, and that will fill up the hole that all this money won't fill for them. But nevertheless, there are people in philanthropy who are so passionate with it, and I meet them all the time. This philanthropic currency will get them the funds first to do the great things they do. One guy just wants to fix a lake and purify it. When he goes and does that, which is passionate for him, that money trickles up. So now you have a trickle up economy for philanthropy to offset the trickle-down economy. So who's getting screwed here? I say nobody. This guy who wants to trickle up for whatever his reason is, probably greed reasons or probably envy reasons, I'm not going to judge it. This is to balance it out. As you talked about with Libra, the idea of balance. This would create balance. But again, I've got tons of these things. So that's where Jazz for Peace is now. Jazz for Peace has solutions, but people that are finally waking up to Jazz for Peace are 25 years down the road. That's the problem. Am I going to be 103 or whatever? I don't know what, 25 years from where I am now, that's going to put me in my 90s in a wheelchair. And what about all the destruction between those years, people waking up and saying, like they say now, you were right back in 2002 at the United Nations when you brought it. That was right. Now you tell me? Look at all the people that died. Look at all the children that died.
You're not going to have to wait 25 years, Rick. Things are climbing in their potency and are being fast tracked. It's the age of acceleration. It's clear as I'm listening to you, your chart's coming to life for me. This is the energy of the peacemaker. This is the energy of the bridge builder through music. This is the energy of the pioneer and the initiator, someone with emotional courage and natural leadership abilities. This is the energy of someone that's brave and has natural courage. You have this inner fire and this pioneering spirit. And you're not someone who is a prisoner of the past. You want to be a pioneer of the future. Well, in fact, you are a pioneer of the future. I want to touch on the poem symbolism because I think this is really important. I'd like to get into more about Jazz for Peace because when I read that poem, I sent you something. I wrote a few lines that came to me after
Yeah,
I
I
read your
remember you.
poem. I thought, wow, the symbolism of this poem, the imagery of light, trees, and universal language aligns beautifully with the events chart, which is Virgo Sun. What does that mean? It means symbolizing service and dedication, and a Gemini moon highlighting communication and storytelling. But your chart, and don't forget, I'm looking at both charts of the event of the day and your chart. Your natal moon is in Aries. That suggests an inherent ability to initiate new beginnings with courage and passion. The moon represents emotions and intuition. And in Aries, this is a sign of the pioneer, the trailblazer, someone who acts on inspiration immediately without hesitation. And the line I hear Jazz for Peace coming through the trees to me suggests a divine inspiration. Could you describe the sensory and emotional experience of receiving these words?
I knew that it was probably coming from a higher power, a higher source. It was coming from somewhere. And I knew that I had to submit to it, whether I wanted to or not. There's a lot of people who allow things to go by the wayside willy-nilly. I see these people and I see what their potential could be, but they don't seem to have the ability to see that, wait a minute, I should be taking this and harnessing it and doing something with it. But that's where luck comes in. People get lucky here and lucky there. Ultimately, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I felt like I was prepared for this. So when you brought up earlier my whole journey leading up to that, and you said that was a part of me and it wasn't just Jazz for Peace, you were right, because I was prepared for something to happen where all this would come together. And that just happened. I've never been so ready for something that nobody was ready for in my life. I've never seen so many people not ready for something I was so ready for, ever. Now, I wasn't ready to understand all the ramifications of 9/11, of course, and the worldwide things, and looking for Osama bin Laden in Iraq and all these things that we did. But I was ready for the inspiration of those words. Again, hearing it coming through the trees. So in other words, it's coming from a higher source. You're right about that. And I was ready for something like that kind of a culmination that put all those panties in a bunch, as they would say in some states, a southern state or something.
That's why last time we spoke, when I asked you about when you were playing, and I said, how do you compose that? You said it's something that came through me. That made me think that you're an agency of amplification for those higher things to come through. And the way it manifests itself is through music, bridge building, and that pioneering spirit you have. But I'm also seeing structural tensions in the event chart. There is a suggestion that there's ongoing tension between an idealistic vision and practical implementation. For Jazz for
Right.
Peace, this may manifest as the challenge of translating beautiful ideals into sustainable structures. Now, your natal chart, you have Saturn in Capricorn, which suggests you have the capacity for building lasting institutions, but it requires careful attention to infrastructure. Many visionary organizations struggle with the balance between maintaining their pure mission and dealing with practical realities. How has Jazz for Peace navigated this tension, if it exists?
One example is with our music. By the Benefit Concert Series, we were hoping to affect people in profoundly positive ways just with the music. And another thing is when I recite the poem, I play music under it and I don't know what I'm going to play because I'm trying to demonstrate to you that I'm opening up a channel and allowing something from the universe to direct. I'm allowing the music to come through me. I'm not just playing something by rote or something on a piece of paper, and I'm allowing that to come through me. The Benefit Concert Series, if you ever go to that page, jazzforpeace.wordpress.com/about, you'll see it proven over and over again, but only to the people who actually experienced it. Because the people who didn't experience are still some other room somewhere. Like they're not able to cross the Rubicon. So even they look at it and it looks too good to be true to them. It looks too good to be true because they haven't actually experienced it. When we did all the concerts, we put the actual words of the actual recipient. I'm in Utah right now. I did 2 concerts for the founder of the ski resort. And anybody can go there and see both of her testimonials glowing in her own words. Nobody told her what to write. She just wrote what she wrote of her experience of Jazz Reviews with the massive fans we ever had, the founder of the resort. And yet the resort itself decided they could have done something. They had a situation in the summertime where they had people gathering there in the summer to get out of the heat and go to the mountain. They could have done something if they wanted to, just had every single Saturday or weekend. They called it Oktoberfest, but instead it could have been something that helped an outstanding cause through Jazz for Peace. They could have repeated what we did for her. They could have repeated that, and they could have drawn the whole world to what they were doing because the results of that would have resonated all across the world. Like this woman who we helped a tribe in Kenya. This could have been multiplied 1,000-fold, right? Instead, they just did something called Oktoberfest. And they saw that they were selling so much beer that they decided to make it Oktoberfest the whole weekend. And then they decided to make it as long as they could, a 3-day weekend. So maybe Oktoberfest was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They just tried to stretch Oktoberfest, of which no outstanding cause was benefiting. And the people who were coming don't even know about the founder's vision. Then they put out an article about that woman, okay, who you can read what she's all about in her testimonials of my event testimonial on that page. You can read who she really is. And they only talked about her relationship to the actual mountain, which was only a small part of who she was. People have choices, but they choose that which is best for them, not even best for the people. And they also try to convince people that what's best for them is what's best for you. They do that by taking everything out of the stoop that would alter their perception. So they would never say, hey, here's your choice. You could do this, which would help mankind. No, they will remove the carrot. They'll remove the celery. They'll remove the turnip. They'll remove all these things. Here's the soup. You can drink beer. What's your vote? You can drink beer or not drink beer. Oh, I think we'll vote to drink beer. You know what I mean? They're not going to put that in there. So this is what we're doing. We are blocking ourselves. I never removed the potential of the true arts and culture from my soup. The reason it's so removed for most people is because they've never even heard it at its potential. They listen to Mozart today. That's a derivative. Even I can't hear the part in Mozart's music that upset the archbishop. You'd have to be in that time. But nobody hears him during that time. He died. He was buried in a pine box, penniless. He was blocked from any opportunity for the public to hear him. Rinse and repeat with all of these people, from a Vincent van Gogh to a John Coltrane. 20 years after John Coltrane died, I found out about his records in a library. I asked my stage band director, who's a good musician, perfectly great musician. He was a crazy drug addict. And I was like, no, he wasn't. But anyway, this is what was not in my soup. You can pull it out of your soup because they've never even heard the musician during his lifetime. You would have to go worldwide to take the John Coltrane of today or the Mozart of today or the Beethoven of today, and 1% of the world would have to hear his music, because it's way below 1% that would hear any of those people during their lifetime. You could say Thelonious Monk, you could say any of them. Way, way below 1. So when they even hear them, it's a derivative. It's their statement meant for the wrong era that you're listening, because they've already been dead for 30 years. You're getting it at a derivative. So my point is, we are way underachieving at the potential for the arts and culture. And I've proven it What do I got to do now? I don't know, but it's on that page. The proof is on that page. There's people who are bribing, apparently, Nobel Peace Prize officials to try to be recognized as what I already did.
One of the placements in the chart of the day and its relationship to your chart is that on the chart of the day, it pointed to challenges around resources and recognition. That aspect suggests an ongoing need to balance artistic integrity with financial sustainability. And this connects to your natal chart, which is Venus in Libra, highlighting your natural diplomacy in handling such tensions. You mentioned some time ago that you started without support or funding. My question is, how has Jazz for Peace evolved its approach to resource gathering while maintaining its core mission?
Here's the big problem. Most nonprofits start out with a person and a dream, and a person who says, you know what? I believe I have the will to solve this problem in our community, in our society, in our world. I have a passion for it. So it starts with that one person's passion, even if it's a founder. It starts with their passion, and that passion is not financially related. It's mostly, okay, where am I going to get the money to do this? How am I going to sustain myself? As they go on that journey, they lose their way. Now you see organizations that are captured. Their biggest, okay, that's who you give the money to if you want to save our ocean. Do you see our ocean being saved? Look at our ocean. It's not being saved. They've been given money ad nauseum to save the ocean. And during the time, it's gotten worse and worse. And when you go behind the scenes, you find out their biggest donor is the person they're supposed to be standing up to. It might be an oil company. They're supposed to be saying, hey, you guys, that's their donor. So they're captured. You see what I mean? So Jazz for Peace has always put achievement first because that's all we had. If we lost our achievement, there's no amount of money. No one's ever offered us enough money to be able to say, forget this achievement stuff, man. No, that never happened. That never came. That money, we never even talked to somebody like that. One time we had BP or something that said they were interested in sponsoring an event, and we said, great. So can you show us the new technology that you have? And that's where the conversation ended, because they didn't have a new technology. They were trying to create, by sponsoring the event, they were trying to make it look like they had a new technology or something. But we wanted them to have a new technology so that we could take their money and promote their new green technology, except it didn't exist. So we couldn't take the sponsorship. We couldn't really continue the discussion for the sponsorship. So my point is, there's too much to lose to do anything except achieve. That's why Jazz for Peace on that page, again, I'm going to send everybody that page. Look at the page. You'll never get to the bottom of it because we have a prize at the bottom of the page. No one's ever got there. It's just and on with hundreds and hundreds, 500, 600, I don't even know, of all the people that we helped in their words, not mine. Read the words of these people. Even well-known names have chimed in. Ralph Nader, this one or that one, lots of them. Noam Chomsky, you can see what they said. For some reason, there's this disconnect. People are still at some kind of a disconnect. Everybody should be playing a part in some form. It is a challenge, an extraordinary challenge.
When I looked at the event chart, there are significant aspects in there that suggested that transformation can come through cross-cultural connection. So I wrote down for Jazz for Peace to elevate its impact. The chart suggests focusing on educational components while deepening institutional partnerships. There's an untapped potential in educational initiatives. Have you ever considered expanding Jazz for Peace's educational programming?
All we need is a person who wants to do that, and we follow them. Because, see, there's nothing that we can really do on our own. In other words, everything we do is a partnership. So what we provide is an empowerment tree. That empowerment tree grows very similar to how Jazz for Peace grows. We try to get publicity and awareness for your outstanding cause. We don't know how much publicity the world is going to give you. We're just going to follow the proven techniques to see how far that branch grows. We have tremendous educational components, but again, it's because somebody showed up and said, hey, I can't believe this is amazing. I saw this. Can I bring it out to my school? Sure, let's work with you. And we'd work with them. You can go to a page, I think it's Jazz for Peace education series.html, and you'll see me performing for 1,000 kids in Massapequa, and you'll see me doing exactly what I would like to be done every day somewhere in the world on this planet. You could do it 850 times every day, but it would be better. But again, it's going from 0 to 1. Everybody's stuck at 0. And my other friend, who I mentioned earlier, who says you really mean 100, he's right. It should be 100. But like I said, we're stuck. We're not even stuck at 1. We're at 0. Education, all we need is a person who says, let's add something and bring Jazz for Peace into the schools. Let's add something and bring this into your school. I've done it all over the world. It should be going on every single day. I shouldn't be here in Salt Lake City without a school saying, hey, come into our school and talk to the kids. We'll do exactly what you saw in the video. I've already done it. Here's the problem. It's a Wizard of Oz fractal, Peter. Okay? We all watched the Wizard of Oz when we were kids. And you know what made it okay with us? It was a big problem. All these things happened to Dorothy. But you know what? When she did get that ruby slipper and brought it back, now you remember the guy, even with the ruby slipper, he tried to get rid of her, right? Tried to get rid of her with the ruby slipper. But you know what? Toto pulled the curtain back, and he turned out to be some little goofy guy, and the goodness came out in him. And this is what has to happen on planet Earth. That little dog pulling that, because when you bring back the ruby slipper and you still don't get on that balloon, that's the part of the world that has a problem. Now, Jazz for Peace isn't even asking you to do something that we haven't already proven. If you look at our budget, USA, you'll see people they haven't proven anything. They're just a proposal, and they're getting millions and billions of dollars. And guess what? They go out and flop. They don't prove it. Jazz for Peace has proven. Our educational series, we've proven it. We've got a video to show you. The kids go nuts. It's one of the bigger ovations. Grown-ups don't give me that big ovation as the kids did in that video. We had a lot of stuff that I've done with kids. I walked in this place. I didn't know what I was walking into. These kids went so berserk. I was like, oh my God, can I go out and come in again? Because if I don't come in with my phone, or somebody's taking a video, no one's going to believe this. No one's going to believe that these kids are so into this movement. I will go out the door, and this is in Kenya, Africa. I come in, the kids go berserk again. It's a take 2. It's not as big as the one, but still, it's massive. So my point is, yes, Jazz for Peace has massive things to offer kids in education, but again, we've brought back the ruby slipper. Where is the air balloon to Kansas? It's time for people to say, we've got all of these things that we're doing that are crazy. He's not even asking us to cancel those. They're nuts. Zillions of dollars for sex change operations for somebody in the middle of Guatemala. I'm saying you can't replace Jazz for Peace. You can add them, but you can't use that to block us. You've got to put Jazz for Peace into your educational soup, period.
So what role do you see Jazz for Peace playing in the next decade of global peace building?
It's going to boil down to whether the world decides to go in the right direction, and we need the average people. Because, see, most of these deals, the people play a role by accepting it. They dumb themselves down. They say, I'll make myself stupid, and then the oligarch won't be mad at me. I don't want to make the oligarch mad, so I'll pretend I'm really this dumb. You better be careful, because you might actually get that dumb if you keep pretending long enough. But they're not as dumb. They're compromising. They're accepting these bizarre, and now they know how bizarre they are. I talk to people and they're like, this is out the window. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. These people that are supposed to save the world, that have all these billions of dollars, go look and see what they did with it, because you can't find it. I have nothing against the Clintons. I'm not saying I dislike them. I got a nice letter once, Hillary Clinton, but Chelsea Clinton is worth $73 million. If you take the 7 off, you've still got $3 million. That's a lot of money with the 7 missing. You need all 3 million. What is your electric bill that you got to make $3 million? But whatever, it's a distorted, bizarre world, and people have to play a role and say, there's a lot of people that have to get in situations where it's, look, Jazz for Peace isn't harming anybody. This trickle-up economy doesn't harm the trickle-down people. We have to allow this healing to take place.
When I look at your chart, there are certain challenges around personal growth edges. There's a square in your chart. What does a square mean? It indicates tension. in the chart. What they suggest is there's personal challenges around leadership and innovation. So it points to the need for continuous reinvention while maintaining authentic artistic expression. So, as both an artist, an organizational leader, how do you balance maintaining your personal creative practice with leading Jazz for Peace?
It's very challenging. What I have to do is wake up in the morning and decide if I want to do anything else except attempt to survive in this bizarre, crazy situation where I constantly have to reinvent and circumvent and get around things, do all of these things that make no sense. Because, like I said, the ruby slipper was provided instead of a negotiation that was humanitarian and made sense and was a win for everybody. A lose was chosen for the benefit of maybe a few people. It's very challenging. One thing I have to look at is the fact that because I haven't gotten the things that I deserved, I may have lasted a lot longer than if I did. There's a lot of areas where I've had to choose austerity in my life in terms of only buying the food that brings me the minimum nutrition I need. In other words, there's not many banana peels for me to slip on to navigate this. People that got everything they wanted and they ended up with an addiction, or they ended up off their track because they started reading their press, or all kinds of stuff like that. One of my biggest problems is simply that I myself am somewhat gaslighted, and I accept it because if everybody knows who you are, everybody knew who John Lennon was, right? And some crazy guy shot him out of the blue. I don't have to worry about a Hinckley right now because he doesn't know who I am to shoot me in the first place. But the thing is, I'm somewhat gaslit because I'm with people who have no idea who I am and what I do. I got off a tramway and a guy called me Rick. And it was this guy. I'd gone to Jackson Hole with him, and he had worked for the news. He was a journalist, and he was a young kid. This kid's way younger than me. And he's like, Rick, you went to Pakistan, right? As a matter of fact, I did. And you flew in the middle of the night and you were unarmed, right? And you went to, and this has happened a couple times now with podcaster. He's the first person who told me about podcasting ever. He said, I learned it on a podcast. You were only a few miles from where Bo Bergdahl was being held captive. And I said, who is Bo Bergdahl? He says, he's this guy I found out about a podcast, a 6-part, you've got to listen to it. He had listened to all 6. Someone had done a podcast series on the Bo Bergdahl situation. This guy only know because he was skiing with me and I hanging out and talking to him. So when he researched stuff that I said, you went down unarmed with your music and helped a country that was 96% illiterate. And he's describing all of it, right? But I didn't realize I did it. That's crazy what I did. That one. There's 850 of these, by the way. This is one that's off the charts. These billion-dollar philanthropists do not know what it's like to fly into a country like that unarmed, go around in a car with tinted windows so no one can see in, wear the clothing of those people, which I had because I had done another concert in Nepal. And these individual stories, they're movies unto themselves. You can make a whole movie out of Jazz for Peace Nepal, Jazz for Peace India, Jazz for Peace Africa, just one of the Jazz for Peace Africas. There's 9 of them. But I'm telling you, you could do a whole movie on this, right? But this guy knew it. Only because, like I told you, he's telling me all this stuff that's true about me that I don't walk around life believing anymore because the world is gaslighted into that didn't happen. And the world believes a bunch of stuff did happen that didn't happen. There's a bunch of stuff we do believe that we find out wasn't true. I'm totally gaslighted into not really knowing the things that I actually have done. On the one hand, it's cool because I don't have the money for the security that I would need. If the world knew who I was, like in the UK, there's that woman, Amy Weinstein. Is that her name? Winehouse?
Winehouse, yeah.
Okay, Amy Winehouse, right over where you are in the UK. She once said, she was looking out a window and she said, I would give all of this just to be able to walk outside with all those camera people and with all these people looking at me all the time. Mm-hmm. She would give up all of it just for that. So in other words, yeah, I have none of that, but what kind of a situation would I be in? That's not a cure either. You follow me? In other words, look at that guy, Matthew Perry, right? Who got everything on Friend. And he said he wants his greatest contribution to convince you that all he thought he was getting was a mirage. So those are the kinds of things, and little things like there's some issues with our climate. I was talking to the person who's allowing me to use this piano. We were talking about a client. I told her I had given an award to a climate scientist. The climate scientist flew all the way up from Florida to receive this award in upstate New York because he knew that his research was non-biased and he was not getting money from the oil companies. And he lives by a 2,000-year-old proverb, and that is the story of the old man and his horse. It's a story about an old man in BC, and it could even be in Asia, China. But this old man, he had a horse, and one day the horse ran off, and his neighbor came by, and he said, "Old man, I'm so sorry." And the old man said, "Sorry for what?" He said, "I'm so sorry that you lost your horse. You only had one of them." He said, "Who knows what is good news and what is bad?" That's what he said. The guy goes away. Next day, the horse comes back, but with 4 other horses. So now he's got 5 horses instead of 1. The guy's got them all in the stable. Everything's great. Neighbor comes by. "Oh, old man, I just want to congratulate you on the good news." He said, "What good news?" "You just had 1 horse. The guy took out and you got 5 horses over here. This is amazing." He said, "Who knows what is good news and what is bad?" Okay, that's how you want to look. I just want to say congratulations, but whatever. Goes home. Next day or a couple days later, his only son now needs to plow the field and all that. These are old times now. And the son gets on the horse to train one of the horses, maybe break it in. The horse bucks it off, breaks his leg in numerous places. They don't know how, no hospitals in the region. Disaster. Guy comes over. "Old man, I'm just so sorry about the bad news." "What bad news?" "Your son, come on, give me a break here. He's got a broken leg. He's in pain, screaming and yelling." He said, "Who knows what is good news and what is bad?" So now the guy's, I don't know if I can deal with this. This is crazy. I'm not going to come over here anymore. This guy's out of his mind. He leaves. But 5 days later, knock. Who is it? It's the government. "Old man, we got a problem. We're going to war. All the young able bodies. I know you're not going to like this news, but we're taking your son to the war." All the kids are still going, yeah. He says, "All right, there's my son." Come in, they're like, "This guy, we can't take him anywhere. Well, I don't know if he'll ever walk." We're taking everybody's son, and your son, obviously, forget about it. Off they go. These kids are the first ones. They make kids fight wars. They start the war, and they don't fight it. The kids fight it. All the kids go out and get killed. They're the first line of defense. This guy survived. Why? Because of the bad news of his son's broken leg. He's alive. I have to be very philosophical for me to continue with each day. But little things like that lead me to believe that what society thinks is good news might not even be good news, and what you think is the worst news might be the best news. On Jazz for Peace, 9/11 was pretty bad news. And if I ever get my way, it'll be the best thing that ever happened.
This is not prediction. This is process. This is process orientated. It's not event orientated. When I look at future trajectories, there suggests to me a period of significant expansion coming up, particularly through international connections. There is a square, there is tension, which suggests the need for careful structure building. What new territories, both geographical and metaphorical, do you see Jazz for Peace moving into, and how are you preparing the organization for its next phase of growth?
We are basically ourselves. Jazz for Peace is an empowerment tree. That's what we are. It's very similar to what we do for outstanding causes. We go through a process to help rejuvenate their staff, donors, and their family of supporters. That's one thing that Jazz for Peace does. And how do we do that? We have something called a VIP opportunity for them where they can be the recipient of all of the swag they give. And we have a VIP meet and greet. We give to them rather than asking them to walk the mile as they've been doing to keep this organization on life support or floating. So we thank, reward, and rejuvenate their supporters. Then we expand their donor base. How do we do that? We give each board member the opportunity to make their friends VIP guests of honor who haven't even done anything for the organization, but they've been trying to get them in to the fold. So they can make a VIP list. And we take all these VIP lists and we have a giant room full of people. And so again, that's something we offer. How many we get, we don't know, but it's a process. We're going to go through each process and grow it as to whatever our potential is, whatever our capacity is. There might be 4 or 5 people who take that and say, you know what? The other ones are like, I'm just going to come bring my wife, no big deal. The other ones are like, no, I got so and such. So he complains all the time about the world should be a better place. I'm going to bring him in as a VIP. Guess what? I'm going to grab this one, that one. He brings a VIP list. Here's my VIP list, and they're all coming. So we get these people by them coming, getting all the VIP swag and networking in the VIP meeting group. That's how that's being achieved. These are going to be future supporters and donors of that organization. Now we have a confirmed event. What do we offer next? And I'm going to translate this into how Jazz for Peace is going to grow after this, but I just want to show you how we already do it. Now we go after their community. We go after their community and we get local sponsors. How do we get local sponsors? We say, listen, they may have told you how good they are, but you didn't believe them because they walk into your bakery every day. You see them. We're telling you, come on board here with your bakery. Bring a couple of cupcakes or whatever to the VIP room. Be a part of theirs because it's helping their community. And we get a handful of these sponsors, right? Now we've got all these people. We've got local sponsors. They're all talking about this event. Guess what we have next? Publicity and awareness. Now when we go to the media, you know what? I heard about that event from so-and-so. He works over at the bank and they're one of your sponsors. Yes, you already heard about it. So you're going to come out? Yes, we are going to come on board because we've been hearing about it before you even told us. That's a publicity and awareness that grows. Now we go after larger sponsors, your Whole Foods or whatever, bigger sponsors that are nationwide, but we get them in on the local. New and prestigious supporters is one where we can bring in well-known people who share the same passion that they do. They also want to see the world get better in that direction. Maybe not this one, but that one. We try to match the prestigious person. Anyway, you grow all these branches. Jazz for Peace, how are we going to do? It's the same way. We have all these possibilities, and we're going to see where the Peter Michael Dedes is of this world. You're the Peter Michael Dedes for what we're doing today, right? Because you are knowledgeable, you're passionate, you also have no qualities holding you back. In the arts and culture, a lot of it, if you watch Amadeus, right? How did he get screwed? Mozart got screwed by not only greed, but also envy. Envy's even worse than greed, right? And that guy Salieri envied him. There's no envy, there's no greed, there's none of these things holding you back. And so we're able to make this progress with this message. But we got to find the same guy of your qualities in these other areas. Somebody who says, gosh darn it, this idea of this world where philanthropy grows, helps our economy growing by the good deeds. Their good deeds grow our economy. This is amazing. I don't know, but where they are, when they're going to show up, that I don't know. But whenever they get here, we're ready for them. So we're ready for whoever has that passion. Like today, I was happy to be ready for you. You were ready, and I was ready as soon as I found it. I didn't know this all about you. I didn't know you looked into all. I didn't know you had. I knew you had a lot. You brought a lot to the table. I didn't know even about all of the chart work and stuff. I had no idea. But like I said, everybody out there's a Peter Michael Dedes potential in their own way. All we want to do is hope that we get them in all of these other areas, because whenever we do, that's going to grow. Without it, we're stuck. I work with the passions of others to help them get from where they are now to where they need to be.
You are on track, you are on time, you are in tune with the cyclical wash of this time. This is the time to embrace transcendence and let go of restrictions. In terms of integration, and again, this is something I see, it suggests that Jazz for Peace can elevate its impact. How does it do that? Partly develop stronger institutional partnerships, expand educational programming, build sustainable funding structures, deepen cross-cultural connections, document and share its methodology. Those are some of the things that I see are fertile ground for building lasting institutional relationships, particularly with educational and cultural organizations. How can the jazz community better support initiatives like Jazz for Peace that use music for societal transformation?
Anyone who participates, I think we can do it. But how do we get them to participate? That's where the question is. Usually there's a middle person. We do have something new that could have some legs to it. That is the Jazz for Peace podcast, where we can do two things. We can help artists who are deserving to get their story out. It could be a project and they want to get their story out. We can help them. And we can also help outstanding causes to get their message out by getting them on the show. We can also help causes that want to merge the arts and philanthropy.
This is your educational platform. That's
Well,
what podcasting is. This is what I was talking about in your chart, the
great.
education of it. So using podcasting, the right guests who are not just frothing at the mouth with ectoplasm, but they're actually bringing something of substance rather than sound bites to the table. This is how you start to get this message out. This is how this becomes fertile ground. So you start to cultivate the soil for new seeds to take root that will build lasting relationships. And you will attract educational and cultural organizations, because if you start bringing people on, if you start having cultural exchange programs, peace research institutes, United Nations affiliated organizations, international music therapy associations, these are all a Jazz for Peace fellowship program where students can learn to integrate peace building into their artistic practice.
I love that. And now you're really bringing things full circle, because after appearing on so many podcasts, I realized that people knew me in this world and I could maybe help somebody else out, bring somebody else on the show. And we featured a couple of podcasts that I appeared on, but the next thing I knew, I was getting these people contacting me. One day I get a letter from this guy related to the United Nations. He's like complimenting one of my episodes that was from the past. It was like a 2-month-old episode, and he had seen it and he wanted to write me, and he did this amazing thing, and everything he said was true. That's the thing. Every single thing that he said was true. And so we have that on a press release where people can see, because he described it. And we've had a lot of prestigious names, prestigious musicians, well-known people have seen that are surrounding the podcast. And I know that people, if they're smart, they'll figure out a way to work with us so we can do something with them, so that they can get the prestigious people that are paying attention to this podcast to see what they do that might not be paying attention to every single podcast out there. Because of all of our achievements, they're like, there's something going on here. So there's interest swirling around this podcast.
And it's massive potential. What would it look like to establish, number one, a sister organization, relationships with peace institutes in conflict regions, using jazz as a bridge for their existing work? That's one thing. The other thing is that in terms of education, having an educational innovation, which is what I see podcasting is about. And the way the event of 9/11, the chart of 9/11 and your chart points to innovative educational possibilities. These are suggestions like online peace through jazz curriculum development, cross-cultural music education programs, teacher training initiatives, youth leadership development through jazz, creating a Jazz for Peace curriculum that music educators worldwide could adapt for their local contexts.
You are saying a whole bunch of things that are 100% true, but what you got to realize, you said them all at once, but people have been saying them for 25 years. They've been saying things. See, it's the degree that people have to be woken up. And so somebody has to wake up someone for something to happen. Now, this woman, I hate to talk about her behind her back, but she's going to listen to hear this podcast anyway. This woman somehow woke up to Jazz for Peace. I don't know, because I never woke her up. You see what I mean? So she somehow woke up, and she's like, what are you doing sandbagging all of your podcasts to April of next April, 2 months from now? Because she woke up, we're here today. And this information is going to reach people so much sooner. Now, who's going to wake up with these people that you're talking about? It's another person, some other person, because this is what her little capability is. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
She might have more, but we don't know. It has to fit her passion. You see, it has to fit into her groove. What could it be? I don't know where your passions are, but you might have something beyond podcasting where you like, you know what? I know who that is over here in the UK. He's right down the street. I'm going to tell him about, I'm going to wake him up. I'm going to take this podcast And I want you to listen to this one because I think Jazz Trapeze, if you wake up to this message, you're going to do something great, you and them. I don't know, but I'm just throwing an example out. It's people like you and like her and these other people, but where are they and how many of them? How long is it going to take them to wake up? That's why I said, you say it's not going to take 25 years, and thank God, but hopefully there will be maybe an inertia where the ball starts rolling on its own. Because right now the ball isn't turning because people are waking up so slowly. But if they wake up in some kind of an inertia event, and if anything exponential was to happen, the sky isn't even the limit. The universe is the limit because all of the people you're mentioning, they all need to be involved with Jazz Trapeze. There's a middleman needed. Someone's got to talk to someone over there to wake that person up. It's a waking up thing. And it's one by one. Then maybe that person doesn't even wake them up farther, but gets them on the road to waking up. Then they contact us. Hey, because we don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. Only you guys know. All of you guys know who these people are. You know somebody that I don't know. This is where the world comes into play. It's really up to the world what's going to happen because we have the way for those who have the will. We have the way. So if somebody has the will to go up to their education department at such and such, or whatever it is, all these synergies that you mentioned, they're all real. Even a jazz festival.
Yeah.
You go to a jazz. If you ever factored in what I have done, the Jazz for Pieces work, what they do is they won't even say that's not being factored. So that somehow is zero. How that got to be a zero, I don't know. But somehow it's like a complete zero. They don't know anything. So you don't factor that in. Again, you remove all that out of the soup. And then somehow, maybe I'm not playing at their festival. But what if you factored all that in, and you know what I do, music, if you factor everything in, then I'm appearing at their festival, and then maybe they put something in the brochure about Jazz Trapeze. Somebody hears me, reads that. You know, there's a million ways that this can happen. Fairness, it's all about the heart. It's all about the willingness to fill our souls up with creativity, artistry, humanity, things of that nature. When we do that, we will have a better chance to avoid the behavior that leads to destruction. You've so well pointed out. And all of these people, whenever they do that, whenever someone who presents music says, you know what, I think I'm going to follow those words and throw this guy on here. These people never heard him in this town. There's people in Africa that know my music. There's people in Uganda that play my music every week. This is a first world country and no one in their town. Madison, Wisconsin. I've never played in Madison, Wisconsin. Nothing against Madison. Probably love Madison, Wisconsin. Just never played there. What are people in Uganda who have come visit me? And I'm sitting there playing a song, playing around on the piano, messing around. And the woman says, this is a person visiting from Uganda. The guy wanted to bring him over to my apartment because she's from Uganda and I had been to Uganda. She says, wow, I love that song, but could you play something that you wrote? I said, I did write that song. She says, no, you didn't. It's in Uganda. What do you mean it's in Uganda? There's a band that played this song every single Saturday and we dance to it. It's a big American pop song, right? I said, what are you talking about? And she tells me that my song, that song I'm playing to you right now, is popular in Uganda. She wants me to play one of my songs, that I wrote this song. And I'm like, I was in Uganda and I did have a 10-piece band and I gave them all this charts and we played the song on the show and people would dance to it and all that. She says, no, people took your chart and they play it every week in their show. We dance. It's a big hit in Kampala, Uganda. I don't know about the rest of Uganda, the main city. Anyway, that's my point. Here, this city, maybe a state away, but no one has the will, no one involved. And how much will do you need when you look at what I've done at Jazz for Peace, right? What I've done up to 25 years ago is enough, way enough, okay, to 1999. 1999, they recorded with the London Symphony Orchestra a song, Permutata, and I put out a record that had 4 of the world's greatest jazz musicians on it. So anyway, all these things I did up to there. But now if you add that, hopefully you will be able to say, I'm going to embrace creativity, artistry, humanity. I'm going to take this situation and put this guy in front of these people in Madison. And again, one person is all it takes in Madison that hears the music, reads about Jazz for Peace, learns about it. One person changes everything by simply going and talking to someone that they know that I don't know that we could do that with. And like you said, there's a zillion people that we can help whenever that bridge is crossed. It's a simple cross.
Well, I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later because we're in an age of acceleration. Have you ever considered partnering with researchers to document and analyze the impact of your work in conflict zones?
It would be phenomenal. But who knows one of them? Who knows one of these guys, right? I have no idea who they are. That guy at the United Nations, I didn't know who he was that wrote. I think maybe we shared that press release with you, right?
Yeah.
United Nations podcast. Did you see that? Okay, good. I could have never found that guy. If you gave me a haystack, I couldn't have found the needle. That's him. Couldn't have found him. He somehow, and I've never talked to him to find him. How did you find us in a world that's blocking us? Because there are people, I've never heard them say the word jazz for peace. And they're reviled as such great people. And maybe they are. But I mean, today I was reading something about Chris Hedges. He's a great guy. I read his stuff. I've never heard him say jazz for peace. And how long can he go? I don't know. We don't know. He could go for 25 more years. I'll be dead. Maybe. I don't know. But if he could, check it out now. Wow. Who knows what could happen? Maybe he'll say, hey, Rick, boom. Because I don't know who he knows. It's a matter of people. I think you see what I'm trying to describe. I don't know if I'm describing it perfectly. Do you see what I mean? There's this chasm. There is this rarefied air that has to be crossed with a person, by a person. And I'm telling you about people who cross it, but I don't know who's going to cross it next. But somebody would have to know who one of those people is and tell them about us. Share your podcast with them would be ideal.
You set the Jazz for Peace podcast into motion?
The Jazz for Peace podcast right now, to be honest with you, has a waiting list of people. And what we have, though, because we have to be fair, and I don't know, some podcasts will do that. They'll just, I'm going to throw you in the front. Jazz for Peace is too fair. This is just the way we are. You know how I am. We've been doing this, what we do, fair to everybody. We are fair to every outstanding cause. We have an equal playing field. People can't believe that we don't favor such and such. We just don't. Everybody, the little guy is as great as the big guy. If the big guy is really as good as the little guy at wanting to make a difference, if he really is. If he's not, the little guy's better. That's just the truth. We've set something up with the book. Now, the book is another way to get people crossing that. Anyone who buys that book and reads it, and I know you told me you're going to read it yourself.
I've been reading it. I've been reading it.
You're reading it now.
Yeah.
So bingo. When you read that book, or even what you've already read, you already know people who read that are going to cross that air. They're going to cross that butter. That's going to slice through everything like butter, that book. But anyway, we have something they can even get the Kindle version of our book, right? So you buy the Kindle version and it's eco-friendly. And we have a link because another podcast told me you got to offer people this because it's eco-friendly. They're very much against all the chopping down trees. So he says, you offer them this and then they pay the balance to offset your expenses to the podcast or just anything to help Jazz for Peace keep floating. So you pay the expenses and now you've only bought a book, but you've got the Kindle version and you've helped Jazz for Peace. And guess what you did? You bypassed the wait list. So we're not pissing off these people that are waiting. And we can get you on the show if you are a person, like you said, looking into doing that kind of work.
I haven't got through the whole book yet, but from a perception lens, I see it as a Jazz for Peace handbook. And it's something whereby one could replicate almost like a guide. If you look at it from a perceptual lens, it could be like a guide that you could use to replicate your successful approaches.
Absolutely. They once had me come down to Akumal, Mexico, and they told me, they said, we've got to get you down here because these big hotels are bribing everybody. They're going to put this hotel in and they're going to destroy 1 million sea turtle eggs that are on this thing, that they come for hundreds of thousands of years, that turtles have been coming to lay these eggs because a coral reef is close. And because of the proximity to the coral reef, the turtles have the best chance of survival because they can get to the coral reef and survive and get food if they can make it before they get killed by everybody, the eggs, by all the animals coming. They said that's going to be history. Because they'll put the pollution into the water from the hotel. There's no way the coral reef can survive. I went down there and they've replicated that every year to ward off this situation. To make the people so conscious that they, oh my God, there it is. They're trying to put it through. They're trying to put this through or that through. When it comes up in the town hall, boom, the people go bananas because of the Jazz for Peace replicating over and over. But the book, there's so many things this book can do besides wake you up in all the ways that we have talked about in this podcast. If we're helping your outstanding cause through fundraising, we can put you in pages of the book. It's like a tutorial. And we can tell you, guess what? don't overwhelm yourself and look at this and that and the other. You're on page 72. See page 72? That's where we are. Just focus on those 2 paragraphs. Things like that, all kinds of stuff. So again, it's a catch-22. People don't see the value in something until after it's too late. They're not going to do it because they haven't already seen it. But you can't already see it until you already do it. Catch-22. And that's what has to be broken. And one way to break that, again, is for if someone reads the book, or if someone, again, our podcast, getting people in, getting their message out, all the things that we're doing, entry points for participation, the entry point then leads to the next thing. Like this podcast today is amazing. If it wasn't for the podcast before, we would never be able to do this.
Exactly. One builds on the other. How can people find out more about your work? And do you have any passing words?
Ultimately, everything comes down to the music. We would be nothing without the art form of jazz, and neither would the poem, and neither would the famous saying, because the art form of jazz, when you Google Rick DellaRatta famous quote, you see that quote that you've mentioned so many times, that I say, when we embrace our greatest qualities, creativity, artistry, humanity, intellectuality, we have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. All of those qualities are in the music, and they're in the music that we perform, in the music that we share. So ultimately, if we just called ourselves 4-piece, we would just be part of the problem out there. But you can reach me. info@jazzforpeace.org is our email address. You can always reach me at info@jazzforpeace.org. If you spell my name, rickdellarata.com, things like that. There's an amazing philanthropist. It's like an entrepreneur website called Enterprise Zone. I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's, you heard of it? Enterprisezone.cc. You've heard of that. And I think it's spelled enterprise with an S, zone.cc. It's a UK organization, I believe.
Yeah.
In the UK. Yeah, you've heard of it. All right. So, folks, if you went there and on the search thing, you type in my name, it's phenomenal because they make you answer with 100 words. So they ask you a question, you have to answer in 100 words, and you will find what you're looking for in 100 words on the question, because they've been so good at asking me. They've asked me like 8 questions, and you just look at the one, and one of them is, what's the kind of organization you really want to support, your heart and soul? And I answer it in 100 words. I basically say, I want to support the organization that wants to follow our easy steps, that's willing to follow easy guidelines. That's the one. Because you can be the greatest organization in the world, and if you don't have the ability to follow the easy guidelines, there's nothing we can do. Anyway, all of them, all 7 of them are great.
Your chart shows how your planetary patterns have evolved since birth. I didn't touch too much on your chart, but there's an indication that the current themes and future potential and the current progressions, it suggests that you're at a crucial moment for expanding the reach and impact of Jazz for Peace. Keep that in mind. Like your guy on the ski slope says, it's 100, not 1. Put that out there. Be a beacon of transmission for that. But also, Jazz for Peace, I want to say first that it represents to me more than just an organization. It embodies and embraces and enacts and extends a crucial evolutionary initiative for our times. And by bridging cultural divides, which you're so good at, through the universal language of jazz, it offers a practical methodology for transformation and transcendence that's so desperately needed in our world.
Wow.
And the astrological signatures I'm seeing, the indications suggest to me that this work will continue to evolve and expand. And I'm not just blowing smoke up the you-know-what, right? Particularly through educational initiatives, podcasting, institutional partnerships, and deeper cross-cultural connections. And your commitment, Rick, to music as a force for peace represents the highest potential of both jazz as an art and human creativity as a force for positive change, because the courage it takes to look at the falling towers and respond with a vision of peace rather than fear speaks to the transformative power of your work. And through Jazz for Peace, you've shown us that music isn't just entertainment, it's a vital force for evolution and healing in our world. Your work embodies what your chart's all about and what's possible, the transformation of individual artistic excellence into collective humanitarian impact. I want to thank you so much for having the courage to follow this vision for building bridges where others only see walls. And you've reminded us that peace isn't just an ideal, it's something we can actively create together through the universal language of music. And I want to see Jazz for Peace continue to grow and evolve. And I know it will. And I know it will touch, move, and inspire more lives and build more bridges across these divides that separate us. That's really an illusion. This separation is an illusion. But your work reminds us that even in our darkest moments, the human spirit can flare and it can rise to create something beautiful that serves the highest good of all.
I'll tell you, part of it is ultimately up to the universe, and the other part is making sure I play my very best game of life every single day that I'm on this planet. And I open up my soul and spirit to the universe and just say, hey, whatever little teeny connection to move this movement forward, little tentacle, let's grab onto it and make whatever progress we can, because I've seen every single little bit and what it's done, and it's how it's affected people in such profoundly positive ways. What is going to happen if we give people a wallop of goodness instead of the massive barrage of war-related activity and things that ultimately become destructive at the end of the day, that no matter how hard these people try to get out of it, it all rears its ugly head. And it's not the way to learn. The way to learn is to give good things an opportunity, not let bad things play out until their final destructive disintegration.
Beautiful. So well said.
So what should we do about the music thing?
What do you want to do?
I have a few things. One, there's a song that was recommended called, I get requests. One was called You Must Believe in Spring. That's a song that relates to the moment we're in right now. But another one is a blues song, an old blues song by Etta James called The Blues Is My Business. That was a couple possibilities. There's also a song by Cole Porter I was messing around with called Love for Sale. Then there's also that Jazz for Peace poem that I sometimes put to spontaneous music to give people an idea of what it's like. So I don't know if you have a preference.
Why don't you go with the poem?
Okay, let's go with the poem.
Yeah, because that's what started it.
That's what started it. Okay. So I'll go to the poem, and then maybe I'll graduate from there, and I'll segue into the blues from there. Ladies and gentlemen of the wonderful Peter Michael Dedes podcast, I'm going to start out with Jazz for Peace, which is a poem. The poem was written on 9/11, watching the events, and it was a bunch of words I wrote, and I titled those words Jazz for Peace. I'm going to start out reciting the words of that poem and playing something that is in the here and now. It's something that's related to the moment in time, the conversation that Peter and I have just had, and the way that the world is turning at this very moment. So it's going to be completely improvisational, completely made up. Then I'm going to go into an old song that was requested by one of our volunteers, and it's called The Blues Is My Business.
your jazz for peace. Coming through the trees. And in my heart it fills me. Like a celebration. Inspired by the past contributions of those that came before. And laid the groundwork. Universal language that is a gift for all mankind. We speak it. People are enlightened. Artistry that stands for peace and love. Intelligence that leads to reaching potential that we have in our souls. see that the gift of giving is our greatest privilege. I hear jazz for peace. Trouble, heart full of sin, things are bad as they ever been. Trouble for money, I'd have more money than any man should. I'm open for business in your neighborhood. The blues is my business and business is good. If I had $1 for every broken heart, I'd be drinking fine wine and eating caviar. If trouble were money, I'd have more money than any man should. I'm open for business in your neighborhood. The blues is my business and business is good. Business is good. The blues is my business. Blues is my business. Open for business in your neighborhood. Blues is my business and business is good. $1 for every broken heart, I'd be drinking fine wine and eating caviar. If trouble were money, I'd be rich than any man should. I'm open for business in your neighborhood. Blues is my business and business is good. Blues is my business. Business is good. Blues is my business. Blues is my business. neighborhood. The blues is my business, and business is good.
That was fantastic. And the way you blend artistry with purpose is so remarkable. It was such a privilege to experience your talent and passion firsthand.
Thank you so much. I think you have to mute that one. Mute the piano one.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Your music's really inspiring, Rick. It's a powerful force for unity and peace. And thank you so much for sharing your gift with us and using your music to uplift and bring people together. And your dedication to making a difference through Jazz for Peace is truly commendable. And I'm looking forward to more performances and continued inspiration. And I'm going to be tracking the evolution of Jazz for Peace. Are you doing any concerts in New York?
Right now, I'm here in Salt Lake City. I'm here skiing. But just so you know, in the UK, there is a site called Getty Images. It's a famous site for pictures. And there are pictures on Getty Images that they're selling for $500 each of me performing in London, in the UK, at a club called Ronnie Scott's. This is something that we could talk about with UK because people in the UK are buying these pictures for $500. Maybe we can use some of these fundraising concepts to bring Jazz for Peace to the UK, because that performance at Ronnie Scott's, it was 3 months before 9/11. So it was before Jazz for Peace. So I have never brought Jazz for Peace to the UK. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. 9 times to Africa. Imagine if this was a soccer match, 9-0. 9 to Africa and 0 to the UK. So I'd love to see if we can, I don't know, use your podcast, use some of these Getty Images or whatever of me performing at Ronnie Scott's.
Send me any relevant links and I'll put them in the show notes.
One of them is actually called jazzforpeace.org/trustedsource.pdf. This enables you, Peter, as a trusted source, to give that fundraising link to anyone that you think is going to do some good with it. And if you know someone who knows an outstanding cause even, you can give it to them. They can show it to the outstanding cause. So it's jazzforpeace.org/trustedsource.pdf. And from there, they can contact us directly and say, hey, we got the link from so-and-so or a friend of Peter's or whoever. And that's enough. We know that we're dealing with somebody legitimate. That's all we need to know. We don't know who's out there, but if we hear of them from a trusted source, bingo. So you could share that link with people. Once they do that, we're on the road to an event in the UK. When I get back, I have appearances like this one today, but because you're the only one we've been able to do this with while I've been out here, all of the other ones starts every single day going through May. Wow. Of either Jazz for Peace podcast, or most of them are me on other people's podcasts. But it's a combination of me appearing on podcasts and Jazz for Peace podcasts, people that I have waiting to appear on the Jazz for Peace podcast that we have to film and get them all rolling.
What's your link for the podcast?
I believe you go to Spotify and just type in Jazz for Peace podcast. Our theme is The Final Solution is Love. And here's another link, jazzforpeace.org/podcast.pdf.
Enjoy the rest of your time skiing.
Yes, thanks so much. Now, what is the lead time on your show?
By next weekend?
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Because a
Easily.
lot of people in Salt Lake City would love to see this. As soon as you do, let me know. She wants to share it with all of her friends and all that.
Oh, great.
All that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I hope you got good powder out there.
We are getting great powder, yeah. Not the kind you get addicted to, but you get addicted to skiing and powder here, though.
Oh, I love skiing.
It's a good addiction, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I used to go to Zell am See in Austria.
Really?
Yeah, I loved it.
I believe the site where you can see this blog, and you'll see me on it, I believe it's called GuruDavePowers.com. And you'll see a shot of something I skied in.
Can I use any of those shots for the thumbnail?
Absolutely. You'll just scroll down and you'll see 2 of them. You'll see something I skied in. I sent him a picture and he just put it on the post for today. If you scroll further down, you will see a shot of me. I'm known as the Jazz Man. So you will see a shot of me and you can definitely use it as a thumbnail.
Thank you, Peter.
I really loved this conversation with you. I think we could have gone on. There was so much more I wanted to cover with you, but
It was fantastic. Yeah, no, you're great as always. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
you're most welcome, Rick. It was great to reconnect with you. And like you said, if we hadn't have done the first one, we'd have been able to get to this point.
Yes, because you really had so much going on, because all that the charts you did and everything were just insane. So you had all that chart work. If we hadn't done that first one, you wouldn't have gone that step to do the charting and all that. That's what I mean. And like you said, if this can speed up, that's where we're going to get the progress.
I know it's tough, but be that beacon of transmission. I know you are that pioneering spirit, but keep projecting out what you want to happen, because as I said, this is the time of accelerated evolution, and especially in your natal chart and in the chart of Jazz for Peace, there are possibilities opening up for you and for Jazz for Peace. So keep your surveillance open and wide, and it'll bring it into focus. You don't want to be looking at the frame. You want to be looking through the frame. When you look at the frame, all the Post-it notes on there are being gaslit and old paradigms and God knows what else. So you want to look through the frame and be the mechanic and the gardener, because the mechanics will fix things, but you also need to be the gardener so you can tend to the garden. You become the gardener, but you tend to your inner garden, and it's much more unpredictable because it's subject to weather patterns. You don't know if things are going to grow, but you have to plant those seeds and cultivate the soil for those skills and for those opportunities to take root so they can start to bloom, cross-germinate and flower.
Great. I appreciate that advice, Peter. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.